Hey everyone, it's Chloe from the Arizona Science Center. Thank you so much for joining me today for our Facebook Live. We do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so if you like content like this, be sure to tune in on those days, as well as check out our website at azscience.org. I know that during the holiday time, I feel a little stressed out, but luckily I have the perfect thing to help melt that stress away, and if I do say so myself, it is the bomb, the bath bomb, in fact. So we're gonna be making some bath bombs today. The only ingredient that you may have to go out and get if you don't have it is going to be some citric acid and possibly even some Epsom salt, but you can just use regular table salt. So the things that you'll need is baking soda, cornstarch, some of that citric acid that I mentioned. Epsom salts are regular salts. I have some coconut oil here that I'm going to use, but you can also use like olive oil instead if you have that. I don't recommend using vegetable oil or like corn oil, corn syrup oil, things like that. That's not very nice for your bath. I also have some essential oils here, so I'm going to be using some sweet orange because I think that smells nice and relaxing. But we do know that lavender can also help you relax, as well as some rose oils. Those are very nice, but I like the smell of the sweet orange, so I'm gonna be using that today. You can also use a couple of food coloring drops if you would like to have some color to your bath bomb as well. I am not going to be adding colors to my bath bombs just because I feel like I don't need it. So what we're going to start off with is you need 2 bowls, as well as some measuring cups and also a little bit of water. Now you need 2 bowls because just like with a real science experiment, if you do any kinds of cooking or even making some bath bombs, you probably want to measure precisely. And in this case, we want to measure precisely with our measuring cups, but we want a bowl for our dry ingredients as well as a bowl for our wet ingredients. So speaking of dry ingredients, I'm going to start with a 1/2 cup of baking soda. So I'm going to use it's actually just a 1/4 cup, so I'm going to take 2 scoops of baking soda. 2 scoops because again, this is a 1/4 cup, so 2 scoops is going to equal a 1/2 cup. So I'm going to dump that into my bowl for my dry ingredients. Next, I need a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. So my baking soda is also known as sodium bicarbonate, and that's what's going to help part of our reaction that we'll see in our bath bombs. I need a 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Cornstarch will help to keep our bath bomb nice and silky. It'll make our skin feel pretty good. Next, I'm going to need another 1/4 cup, this time of my citric acid. So I'm gonna try to break up some of the pieces that I can already kind of see in there. And I'm going to dump that into my 1/4 cup as well. And then I'm going to be dumping that 1/4 cup of citric acid into my dry ingredient mixture. So again, I mentioned that sodium bicarbonate is my baking soda, and that's actually a base. Citric acid, on the other hand, is, as the name implies, an acid. So what that's going to do is it's going to cause a pretty cool alkalization. And what that means, it's kind of like when you do a baking soda volcano where there's a base and an acid and they get together and they kind of don't mix, but instead we can see a pretty neat reaction. Next, I'm trying to grab some of my Epsom salts. So for your salt, you're going to need another 1/4 cup of that. That's looking okay to me. I might add just a little bit more because I didn't get a full scoop of my 1/4 cup of that. Perfect. That looks like it's going to be enough. Now you'll also want something to mix your ingredients with. So I have some popsicle sticks. These are the large ones. You can also use a spoon if you have them. Or another thing that you might want to consider is maybe even a whisk. Sometimes a whisk can help, as long as you don't mind your whisk being used for something that's not food. So because I don't want to use something like that for my bath bomb, I'm going to be just using these popsicle sticks. And you're gonna wanna give that a nice stir. If there's any clumps in there, you wanna make sure to get those clumps out. I have already made kind of a mess around myself, so keep that in mind too. The baking soda as well as the cornstarch can kind of get everywhere. So you wanna be a little bit careful, maybe have an adult help you mix. Now while I'm mixing, like I said, I'm also trying to get rid of any of those big clumps. You can kind of hear me like stabbing around in there. That's just to help break apart some of these little pieces. Something else to keep in mind while you're making your bath bomb is that if you don't want your hands to get dirty, or if maybe you want to make someone a special kind of bath bomb using an essential oil that you might be a little sensitive to, you might want to have some gloves on as well. That'll be a good thing to have. Gloves are also just good for any kind of science experiment. All right, so it looks like my dry ingredients are nice and mixed together. Next, I'm going to be doing some of my wet ingredients. So I am going to start off with my water. I have a 1/2 tablespoon here, and I'm going to start with 1 1/4 tablespoon of, or I'm sorry, just a 1/2 tablespoon of water. I'm going to try to do 1 1/4 tablespoon of my oil. So again, I have coconut oil, but you can use something like olive oil if you have that at home instead. So this is 1/2 tablespoon, and I'm going to try to get, where's my other stick? I'm going to try to get 1 1/4 tablespoon of oil. So I need, how many would that be? So I have 1/2 tablespoon. That means that I need 2 full scoops and like a 1/2 scoop. So I'm going to get all of that in there. Now my coconut oil is kind of solid right now because it's a little bit chillier here in Arizona, but I think it'll still mix just fine. So if you have coconut oil and it's also a little bit firm, that'll be okay too. I'm gonna scoop that out there, and then I'm gonna actually leave that on the side because I don't wanna get coconut oil everywhere. So once you have your oil and your water, you can try to start combining those. It might help if you try to melt your coconut oil first, but I haven't had any issues getting it to kind of blend together. You just want to be careful as you're mixing. You don't want to get too aggressive with it because then the water is going to go everywhere, and you can also get some of that coconut oil everywhere too. So while you mix this, another thing that you can add is if you have food coloring that you want and you want like a pretty bath bomb, I recommend doing 4 to 6 drops of color for this recipe. Or perhaps if that seems like too much and you want like a nice faint color, maybe go for like 2 drops of color. It just depends on what kind of color bath bomb you want. Now's the time that I'm going to add some of my essential oils. So I'm going to do like a teaspoon of essential oil, not too much, not too little. I'm just gonna do a couple of shakes of my essential oil into there until I can smell it, and it smells nice and fragrant because again, I chose that sweet orange scent. And once you have your wet ingredients combined, you can add them together. So I just wanna make sure to get this just a little bit more mixed in, and then I'm going to just once again make sure that my dry ingredients are nice and combined as well. And I'm going to slowly add these things together. Now you want to do it slowly because you do not want your bath bomb to already begin to fizz too much. So if you start to see too much fizzing, you know to slow down, but start to mix. So it might be helpful to have an assistant while you do your science experiment today, someone to pour and someone to mix, because you want to pour and mix pretty equally, and you also want it to get nice and combined. It's going to be a texture kind of like wet sand. That's how you know you'll have a good one. So add it a little bit at a time. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. There we go. I'm gonna keep mixing. And again, you wanna keep mixing until it's like the consistency of wet sand. It'll get there once you add all of your ingredients, all of your wet ingredients to your dry ingredients. So I think I just have 1 more scoop to add. And once I add this last bit to my bath bomb, I think it'll be ready for its mold. Now, once you have it in the mold, it might take a little while for it to firm up. In fact, I like to add mine to the fridge so that way it gets kind of nice and hard. But if you, and it also hardens a lot quicker than if you just leave it out. But you can also just leave it out if you would like. That also totally works. It's not going to damage your bath bomb if you just leave it out or if you put it into the fridge. Although keep in mind, if you put it in the fridge, you don't want to leave it in there too long because that could damage it. It might get a little too firm and brittle. So I think I have just a little bit more of this mixture in here that I want to add. And then my bath bomb will be good to go. And I'm actually gonna use 2 stir sticks because why not? Want to make sure they get their good use out of it. Awesome. So as I'm mixing together, I can tell that my consistency is that of wet sand. If I push on it, it's a little mushy. It kind of holds its shape when I push it against the sides. That's perfect. That's the exact consistency you want. So now it's time to transfer my mixture to my molds. So in a mold like this, this is a 4x3 mold, I'm probably going to get like 3.5 out of it. So I'm going to use my 1/4 cup to kind of help scoop as well as to get just the right amount and make sure that all of my ingredients kind of fit in there nicely. And I'm also going to use the back of my measuring cup to kind of press it down into the mold. Pressing it down into the mold will just help to make sure that it all firms up nicely, and when you take it out later, it hopefully won't crack, and that kind of helps with that too. So I'm gonna get a nice couple scoops, fill up my molds. Now I'm probably, like I said, I'm gonna get about 3.5, maybe 4 out of them, because I'm not gonna fill them up all the way. But you can easily add to this recipe if you want to make more than just this amount as well. Actually, it looks like I have a bit more. Maybe I can get a final one in there as well. So I'll have 5 bath bombs. Okay, so I'm going to leave that to sit. I think you can kind of see what they look like if I hold them up. So you can see that I've got them into 5 little containers. So I'm going to let them sit for a little while, and once they've sat, they're actually going to look a little bit like this. I have one pre-made, and once it's pre-made, we can see that our bath bomb will begin to fizz up into our water. I don't know if you can hear that, but you can break it apart a little bit to help it fizz up. Again, if you want some color in there, you'll be able to see it fizzing a lot more, but you can certainly hear that science in action. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for this Facebook Live. Again, we do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Be sure to check us out at those times if you like content like this, and also check us out on our website at azscience.org. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Bye.